Hey, we're the Board Buds, and today we're going to be reviewing Luthier by Paperson Games, designed by Dave Beck and Abe Burson, with art by Vincent Dutrait. This is a worker placement game where you are making and repairing instruments, as well as doing performances to keep your patrons happy and earn points. We'll get into some more stuff when we start talking about the gameplay, but first we're going to talk about the art and components. What do you want to start with?
Sure, we can talk about the components a little bit. This game comes with a lot of wooden components. You're going to be placing your workers out as these like wooden discs on the board with different numbers on them. So every player has their own set of like wooden discs and wooden instruments. So a lot of wooden components. Um, the one thing I will say, the run that I had came with replacement wooden components. Because there were some issues with the original ones. But overall, the ones from the replacement seem pretty nice.
Um, the issue was the workers are discs, and you place them secretly, so it's supposed to be hidden, but they weren't sized properly, so you could tell by the size which numbers were which
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah. And the replacements are a lot nicer. There's still a little bit of a difference, but unless you're really micro looking at it, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, I couldn't tell when they were on the board. I could only tell they were different size when I'm just fiddling with them in my
Mm.
hand. They're not exactly perfect, but it didn't affect gameplay at all with the
Yeah,
replacement pack.
no.
Um, a lot of the wood bits are also screen printed, so it's not stickers, which is nice.
Yeah, it's actually really nice. I prefer the screen printing on them.
Yeah, I think the only non wood components were the money and the inspiration tokens, the exclamation marks.
Yep, the exclamation parts of money and a couple of the performance
Oh,
and
right, right, right. Repair.
repair tokens are just small cardboard pieces, but it's actually a fairly thick cardboard, so they don't feel flimsy.
Yeah,
And they look really nice printed out. So
yeah, everything looked good and felt good. What did you think as far as symbology and like readability of the board and everything?
for the most part, it's pretty good. There were some kind of questions on what a couple things like. It's hard to tell maybe what some of the additional actions if they are in addition or separate. But I think when we were going through, we didn't really need to look at the reference too much to figure out what the various goals were or what was on our cards. For the most part, the rewards were fairly self-explanatory outside a couple things.
Yeah, I agree. Most everything made sense, and like each spot that you can go to on the board kind of has a little symbology section about what you get for going there, so it makes everything pretty clear. We did have a couple questions, but it was pretty minor, and yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think I really needed the reference sheet pretty much at all, except for maybe some of the like end game scoring abilities and goals and stuff like that.
yeah. I will say though, the rule book itself was a little bit hard to parse. Just the way that things are sorted makes it a bit difficult to track down. But there is a reference sheet on the back, and it wasn't too bad overall once I kind of got through it.
Anything else? Look, I guess art. You want any
Yeah, I
thoughts on
mean,
the
the
art?
art is fairly nice. There's a lot of portraits on cards and on the people that you'll select at the beginning of the game. It definitely looks nice. It didn't blow me away, but it's good looking. Obviously, you can see the cover here is actually quite nice. I do like the cover a lot.
Yeah, I really like the cover and think everything looks classy and nice overall, but
Yeah,
nothing.
it definitely fits the vibe of what they're going for.
Yeah, but like you said, nothing. It's not like a favorite art style or anything of
Yeah,
mine, but it looks nice and fits the game. Do we want to get into some thoughts on gameplay stuff now?
sure.
I think the biggest hook for the game, I guess, is the worker placement system and how all that works. Do you want to give a brief rundown of that, and then we can talk about how we what we think of it?
Yep. So everybody starts with three workers worth one, three, and five, and you'll go around the table placing each of them hidden upside down, so the number's hidden on various worker spaces, either on the board or on your own board. And once you go around and everybody's completed that, then you do a second phase where each player will go in turn order, will activate a space, and then everybody with chips on that space will be able to perform that action in the order that their numbers were on their hidden chips. So if you placed a five, you would be able to go first. Um, Along with that, you'll get some bonuses if your number was higher enough. So you're fighting both for if you want some of the additional bonuses and to get the highest number so you can get, say, like the instrument that you want so nobody else takes it or the repair card. Um, so it's kind of a blind bidding in that sense where you're fighting over that and you don't necessarily know if you're going to get the thing that you want unless you commit very hard to it.
Then you also don't know if the thing that you want to happen is going to happen in the proper order. So you might not have the resources you want or need to do the get what you want or do what you want there because, like you said, after everyone's placed, you're in turn order choosing which action to activate, I guess, for everybody. So it's very interactive in that way for the worker placement, in my opinion, which was fun.
Yeah, and we played both a four-player and a two-player game. And in the four-player game, it seemed like that became a much bigger problem where you had to be conscious of making sure that things got done before other things if they were really important to you, because you didn't know, yeah, if somebody else would activate a space that would be unfortunately timed, like you didn't have the resources ready. In our two-player game, though, it felt like it mattered a lot less in that regard.
Yeah. In the two-player game, I basically didn't care that you existed and you had virtually no impact on anything that I did. Whereas the four-player one, there's a spot that you can go to claim the public goals throughout, and I was set up to claim two or three of them in the last round, but I needed a couple actions to get ready for that, and someone just activated the claim spot right away, so I got nothing. So very interactive in that way, and it's a pretty tense and interesting decisions and reveals throughout, I guess.
Yeah, and it definitely can affect a lot of your plan because when you're looking to fulfill your patrons, you might be looking for a string instrument, and if there's only one out on the board, you need to make sure that you get that first.
Right.
So somebody else might steal that from you. There's some like mitigation that you can do to search through the deck if you really need to, but it's fairly expensive. So you really got to take into account what your highest priorities are and making sure that they're done um, before other people.
Right, and the markets for each action, because each action is, well, most actions on the main board are a market of 4 or 5 cards, and other than the first one or two, you have to pay money to do them. So even if, oh, there's a lot of things you want, maybe you don't have the resources to afford to
Mm-hmm.
pick them up, because this is, it's not a super tight game, I don't think. Like, I never feel starved for resources, but it's also not overflowing.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to get resources, but like doing the thing where you're searching through decks costs 10 gold, which is a
Right.
lot
That's
compared
expensive,
to
yeah.
you know the first space might only be four, so it can really hurt you if you need to go that route. And you can't just willy nilly do every single upper payment without getting some downsides to that.
Right. One of the games we played, I thought I had a lot of money pretty early on, and very quickly did a couple of the took some cards that I had to pay extra for, and was broke pretty fast. So that didn't end well.
Yeah, it can be kind of hard to bounce back, especially that there's a space to get six money, and performance usually pays out okay, but it can be difficult to really get a ton of money back if you're behind in that regard.
Um, so when you start the game, you get two different famous instrument makers, possibly families. I think some of them are families. Um,
Yes, families.
and they're asymmetrical to a little bit, some extent. Do you think about any real thoughts on those?
I thought they were okay. Most of the powers I got just kind of got me an extra instrument card at the beginning or an extra patron, which is nice. But it didn't really feel like it too much changed what our overall plans were outside of just getting some extra resources.
Yeah, I agree. It changes your starting resources too a little bit. It felt a lot like Paverson's previous game distilled the alcohol makers in those.
Hmm.
It felt about that level if you're familiar with that game, where minor tweaks to your start, but it's probably not gonna set your strategy for the entire game.
Yeah,
But the variety's nice.
yeah, I did like at least to have some kind of a little bit different at the beginning.
Yeah.
What'd you think about the orchestra section?
So the orchestra section in the middle is kind of like an area control type mini game to the
Yep.
game to get extra points. Um, if you make instruments, they tie to certain spots on the board, which guarantees that you will be the first chair in that spot, which is basically the controller owner of that spot if you do it first. So if I make a violin and I'm the first one to do it, then I get the violin spot. And when you claim a spot like that, there's a small reward you get. They're not huge, but they definitely help keep you from running out of instruments. And then you can also get some power in those spots by doing performances or repairs, which is like, repairs are just a kind of making instruments but cheaper in a different action, I guess, but similar in regards to the resources you spend. And performances is kind of a dice roll that you can mitigate some and improve your ability to do, and usually gives you money. So when you do those things, you can go out and soft claim some spots and compete with people there. But if someone makes the instrument, they win the spot. Thoughts on that overall was that's one of the parts of the board that I found a little harder to read than others. It's not really hard, but just at a glance, I get a little lost on it.
That's fair. The text on the board is pretty small, telling you what instrument is supposed to go in what space. So when you're doing performance or repairs, it's easier to tell where you're going. But then when the instrument, I kind of found every time I finished an instrument, I was like searching around for which spot I was actually supposed to take. Yeah.
Um, go
Oh,
ahead.
good. I was going to say, and it was kind of hard to plan for where I was going because more times I was picking an instrument just to fulfill my patrons rather than to fill a specific spot in the orchestra.
Yeah, I felt similar as far as that goes. The keeping your patron happy and finishing them felt more important than getting a
Hmm.
spot in the orchestra. But if there were multiple like string instruments out, I would try to make sure that.
Yeah.
But it was a secondary consideration, not the primary. I do think overall that section in mechanic is fun and interesting and adds a little more interaction still. Because at the end, whoever has the most first chairs, which is like I said, the whoever controls it, or not whoever has the most, but you get points based on how many you have.
Yep.
So the more you have, you're getting more and more points. It's not even like 1 to 1; it scales up as you get more. And I think that was a big decider in a couple of our games of who won.
It can be quite a bit of points at the end. I think we had a pretty big swing just based on the chairs.
Yeah, I think the 4 player game we played of this was, I think the winning score was around 100, and I think they got close to 20 from first chair points, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Did you like that mechanic?
It was definitely interesting, but as far as how I played, I mostly just did it to get the rewards rather than go for the chair and just kind of hope that I got the chairs. Um, but I think like you said, it is nice to have a bit more interaction in that regard. So you might have to think about taking a spot that's less optimal, but you can claim a chair on and hopefully keep it as long as nobody puts an instrument out.
Another thing with that is there's a few luxury instruments, are they called, or unique instruments, something like
Yep.
that. They are worth more points to make, but they cost a lot more than the standard ones, and they have their own slot that as many as exists can go there. So there's no limit on them, but they still count as the chair. So I tried to do a bunch of those in the one game, and didn't really work out. But it is an option if you're feeling pressed and don't really want to fight people for stuff. You can just guarantee that if you make this, you're going to get a chair out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, those are always nice to try and pick up when I saw them come, but I think a lot of people kind of would fight for them if they saw them.
Yeah, and they're also really like
They're
a
quite
lot
hard to
more.
make. Yeah.
They're way more expensive than the base ones. I think another big thing we haven't really mentioned is how patrons work at all. I guess.
Yeah, so when you take patrons into your bench, you have to keep them happy. So every turn, their
Patience, I think.
patience will tick up, which on the one hand actually will get you some rewards underneath the card. But if it reaches the end of the track, I believe after 3 rounds,
Yeah, it's
they
3.
will leave and give you negative points for not keeping them happy. And so each patron has requirements on it, which can be their main requirement is always finishing a specific type of instrument, but they might also have sub requirements. And as long as you complete one of those requirements, you can reset their track back down to zero. So it can be an interesting game of balancing when you want to reset to get better rewards as the patient goes up, but also making sure that you do reset before they just leave. And especially those patrons can also give you passive bonuses when you complete them. So it's a balancing game of how fast you want to focus on one or keep a bunch happy, and making sure that none of them leave. It felt like one of the more difficult parts of the game to manage.
Yeah, I really like that whole system in general, like them losing patience but giving you stuff as they lose patience, and then the reward for completing them is a passive bonus of some sort, some of which felt really strong.
Yeah,
Like there were some that was you could finish your instrument for like any one less cube.
yeah, those were always really strong.
Yeah, and there's later in the game there's end game points ones which can be pretty impactful. The balance of having a bunch of patrons, keeping them happy enough to not leave, and trying to finish them in time to get value out of their passive for finishing them was, I thought, really really interesting.
Yeah, I could definitely. I know, the first game we played, I think I had 3 patrons out immediately and was struggling to make sure they didn't leave. But you can also just choose to like have one and really complete it as soon as possible, to be able to get that passive online early. So there's some decision making there.
Um, Another thing to talk about, probably, there's a couple upgrade tracks for some of the actions. If you go to the perform or repair slot with a large enough number, you can move up a track, which the repair one makes your building instruments better and easier, so you can build 2 at once or finish 2 at once and things like that. And the perform one just mostly makes it easier to roll better for the performance. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, they're quite interesting. I think I had in the games that we played, I've gone down both tracks. Usually, you can't do both. Focus maybe on one or the other, but they can be really powerful. I know there's plenty of times where I've wanted to build 2 instruments and then just realized, oh, shoot, I have to commit 2 discs if I want to build two, because I didn't go up the track. Um, and the performance as well, having the stronger dice can really make or break getting that number threshold for getting the better rewards in the performances.
Yeah, I thought they were interesting, and I intended to focus on at least one of them both times, but I think I ended up not actually focusing on either of them either time.
It
So,
can be difficult because you have to commit larger numbers to your perform and repair, which means you aren't committing to salon to get patrons or guild to get instruments. Especially if you're fighting people for those, um, you might want to be putting your high numbers there to get the exact instrument you want.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I got derailed somewhere along the way trying to do other things and never actually made it very far on them. But I started both games being like, yeah, I'm gonna go up these tracks.
And when you make it halfway up the tracks, you get a special worker, which for each track will give you a different one. But you get to choose from a couple cards that you'll put out at the beginning of the game, and they can upgrade one of your discs to basically improve some actions that you take. Like for instance, I had one that let me roll an extra dice when I performed, or you might have one that just gets you money every time you place that disc. So they can actually be pretty powerful. So it's something that actually you might want to go to, and you have a couple different choices when you get it. If you're the first person there, you get to choose from a couple.
I've never got one of those, so I don't have any real thoughts on those. They sounded nice when other people had them.
They do feel really good when you can get them online, but I mean, I think even the ones that I usually got pretty late in the game and only really got to use once or twice. There's only 6 rounds in total, which it can feel pretty fast once you get to round 5 and you realize the game's already ending and you
Yeah,
still have a ton of things that you want to do. You do get more workers, up to 5 total workers, as you get into the end of the game. But it really felt like, oh man, I still haven't finished all this stuff and the game's about to end.
it really does feel tight in terms of actions.
Yes.
Um, there's also assistants. What are the hat things?
Things.
The
Yes, yep.
think assistants.
Yeah, you can unlock assistants either by buying in the market or gaining them as a reward. And there's little flat chips. And when you put out a chip, you can put one on top, and it'll boost the value of that chip by one. So everybody knows that it's there, but they don't necessarily know your total number, just that you might be committing a little bit more. But I actually those are really valuable because they can bump you up to that threshold to get the bonus rewards on a lot of spaces, which is really nice.
Yeah, I liked that as an idea of the assistants, and you're limited to only having 3 of them at once, so you can't just stockpile them and have some mega turn, which I
Yeah,
think is also a good idea. But it's nice to be able to bump up some of your lower numbers to at least hit the threshold that you need to go up a track or get an
yeah,
extra bonus. And it's also if you really need to be make sure you're first on an action, it's really nice for that too.
yeah.
um, Anything else? Maybe like the goals, I guess. I don't think there's anything really.
There's a couple public goals. They don't really feel like they're crazy hard to get. Usually they're pretty low, but you do have to commit to going up on this top track. So you have to commit a worker to completing a goal. But doing so does get you some bonus abilities, improving a couple of your things, like increasing your storage space or getting a special patron. So those can be nice to go for, and a little bit of points. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting part of them was that when you claim one of the bonuses, you remove the token from your board, which
Mhm.
unlocks you a extra power or whatever. I thought that was the most interesting part of it.
Yeah, and all the powers are good, so I was always torn between which one to take. Especially like my storage space was always full, so I always wanted more. But also, if you're doing a lot of performing, you can make your performances better, and even the special patrons that you can get have some pretty strong effects on them.
Yeah, store. I ran out of storage space constantly because it starts at 9, which sounds like it's okay, but it when you're trying to plan a like multiple instrument
Yeah, it
build,
can
it runs
quickly
out
become
quick.
full.
Um, any thoughts before we get to scores?
No, so
Go ahead.
okay. I think I would say this game probably, I mean, between like a 7.5 and an 8. I think I need a couple more plays, especially with a larger number of people, since it played quite a bit different between 2 and 4. But I do think that primary action of putting down your hidden chips is really interesting, and I haven't seen a ton of that done in this way as far as like a worker placement. So it makes everything feel super tight, and like really I have to think about where my priorities are, and what I think everybody else is going to do.
For me, I think it's a solid 8. Like you said, that primary worker placement mechanic with the numbers just provides so much more interaction than most heavy Euros like this. So that was really interesting and different to me, and I really enjoyed it. Two players would not be an 8. That I'm kind of not interested in playing it at two players again. It was kind of just a go through the motions type thing with literally no interaction and didn't feel very good to me, really. But solid 8 with 4. 3 would probably be fine as well.
Yep.
So that was Luthier, and bye.